long ago, there were Generation Z, Gen Z, Zoomers. But now, they are the pandemic generation, the lockdown generation. The question is, will they become a lost generation? The new normal has been an overwhelming experience for all of us, but an especially profound one for today's young people. Will they become a lost generation? The new normal has been an overwhelming experience for all of us, but an especially profound one for today's young people. Will they view our nation as a land of hope, opportunity, and unlimited potential? Or as something else entirely? Waiting to see what happens isn't enough.
All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. My name is Jobina Fortson with ABC7. Thank you so much for joining us today. We at ABC have partnered with Junior Achievement of Northern California to bring you all a very special virtual town hall event today featuring students and also financial experts. They are amazing. I've gotten to know them over the past couple of days, and they are going to be coming to you throughout Northern California to address what's on the minds of our young people right now, and what can really just best be described as the most challenging year for many of our lives. So much is happening right now. We have the pandemic, of course. We also have racial injustice. We have wildfires burning up and down the West Coast right now. So there's a lot to process and unpack here. And everything is impacting all of us in one way or another. So no one is alone in this struggle. So yes, we are still working from home. Many of us also studying and learning from home remotely. And it's presented a unique set of challenges, but also opportunities like the one we are taking advantage of today by bringing this to you virtually. So that's exactly why we at ABC partnered with Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement's mission is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in a global economy, which has never been more important than I'd say right here at this moment today. JA brings financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship experiences to youth, and this is happening all around the globe, not just here in Northern California. So this virtual event is a great example of that because you can be joining us from anywhere. So if your friends aren't here, make sure to tell them to log on. We'll be around until 4 o'clock today. And this is going to be sticking around later, so I'll have some more information on how you can check out those clips. So today we have a phenomenal group of speakers. These panelists are, I really cannot talk them up enough. I'm going to hit their bios in a second here, but they are going to be answering questions that are on the minds of youth today. And we will be discussing ways to save, invest, manage, protect your money, and particularly in these unprecedented times. And you saw the list of sponsors on the screen earlier before our program got started. So we just want to give a special thank you to all of them. Now, before we begin, I want to let our students know who are watching. There are plenty of ways to do so. And if you're watching live on this broadcast through YouTube, I want you to feel free to post your questions in the chat feature. And there's a special reason as to why you can do that, because we have our volunteers from HSBC on hand to answer questions throughout the program. Also, everyone, throughout the broadcast, you will see a QR code periodically pop up on the screen there. You see it at the bottom right now, okay? So if you have a smartphone, you can scan that QR code, and then it will link to our financial literacy trivia questions. Now, by answering the questions and submitting the survey at the end of the broadcast, you have a chance to win some Apple AirPods. Yes. So did I catch your attention there? I really hope I did. So let's begin. I want to start by introducing our panelists, and we are going to begin with the awesome Warren Harris, everybody. He is the SVP, Fair and Responsible Banking Officer at Luther Bank Savings. He's widely respected for his expertise in financial regulation and consumer protection, and he is an advocate for financial system stability and responsible for lending practices. So welcome, Warren, and thank you. Next up here, we have, thank you, Rebecca Del Mundo, Financial Education Manager at Golden One Credit Union from Sacramento, California. She has some fun facts about her too. We'll save those later, but just so everybody knows, she got some TikTok moves in there, okay? And then Elton Lynn, he is the CEO and co-founder of Illumine Education, a college admissions counseling firm based in San Francisco, the Bay Area here. Elton has worked with teens for 20 years and has helped students reach their college goals for over a decade. So we want to thank all of you all so much. And last but not least, our keynote speaker, everyone, Aday Tesfaye, smiling there in her pink jacket. Thank you, Aday. Okay, she is Vice President, National Community Development Manager at HSBC Bank, one of the world's largest banking and financial services organizations. Aday leads 6 managers across the U.S. whose responsibility is to oversee the bank's Community Reinvestment Act initiatives by cultivating relationships with community groups to help HSBC meet the credit needs of the communities it serves. So Aday, take it away.
Wow, what a start. Thank you so much, Jobina, for those kind words and starting us with so much energy. That is wonderful. I'm honored to be here with you today as part of ABC7 Virtual Town Hall on Financial Literacy. My name is Aday Tesfaye, as Jobina explained, and I work for HSBC Bank as Vice President and National Community Development Manager. I know, what a long title, right? But what it really means is that I get the pleasure of connecting HSBC to its communities, like partnering with Near Achievement. I have the pleasure of recruiting HSBC Bank volunteers to come out and teach young adults like yourself at your schools. I am blessed to work for an organization that supports financial literacy and believe in educating young students on how to handle money in a smart way at an early age. HSBC was born from one simple idea: a local bank serving international needs. In March 1865, over 150 years ago, HSBC opened its doors for business in Hong Kong. By the start of 21st century, HSBC had become one of the world's leading banking and financial service organizations. It is headquartered in London and serves customers worldwide from offices in 64 countries. Our values define who we are. As an organization, we are dependable. We're open to different ideas and cultures, and we are connected to our customers, communities, and each other. These values reflect the best aspect of our 150 plus years. They are vital to fulfilling our purpose of helping businesses to thrive, economies to prosper, and ultimately helping people to fulfill their hopes and realize their ambitions, like all of you here today, taking an important step of learning to be financial champions. The relationship between HSBC and JA started in 1946. A funding request from JA Chicago is received by an organization called Household International, and the firm makes a $25 contribution to JA. You heard me, $25. Fast forward to 2020, HSBC Bank long ago acquired Household International, and much has changed since then. What hasn't changed is the long-term commitment to junior achievement. Since that $25 contribution, HSBC Bank and its affiliates have contributed millions in dollars of support to JA USA and JA Worldwide, made financial wellness a centerpiece of its giving strategy, held countless classroom activities for students in K to 12 grade, and now is helping JA around the world provide virtual learning opportunities to students. This isn't just an opportunity to give back. This is a true and lasting partnership of over 70 plus years. So why am I so passionate about financial literacy? At least 72% of students, right? 72% of you say personal finances stresses them out. One big reason, students lack education and resources to help them make their personal finances make sense. So yeah, stressful for sure. I was one of them. I came to the US as a college student and I had no idea how money worked, what bank account is all about, what is the difference between wants and needs. Because I didn't have that education at an early age, I accumulated a lot of debt. Yep. I paid a huge price to pay off the unnecessary debt I accumulated. I am glad to see many of you participating today so you wouldn't make the same mistake I made. And the reason why I have been to many of your schools volunteering to educate young students and asking my colleagues to do the same. JA makes it possible for me and many adults like me to come out to your schools to share our experiences and discuss different topics on financial literacy. This is more so important now than ever as we're going through the pandemic. We're going through some hard times, which contributed to greater poverty and financial instability. It is important that we all work together to help you and other students learn how to best prepare you for financial emergencies. This is the reason why we are here today and why we partner with Junior Achievement. We are proud of the work JA continues to achieve in helping young people realize their financial dreams and stand shoulder to shoulder, of course, remember 6 feet apart, to ensure we all continue to work towards greater financial wellness. Thank you so much for having me today, and best of luck to all of you. Back to you, Jobina.
Thank you so much, Ade. And she is going to be sticking around with our panelists to answer some of those questions. But before we get started on that with our amazing JA students, I do want to remind everyone that you can ask a question in the Q&A found at the bottom of your screen. And we do have our financial partners, those volunteers, standing by waiting to answer those questions for you. Okay, now we will begin, and we're going to start with Ryan. He is a senior, is getting ready to graduate, and he has a question that I think is on the minds of many seniors around the world, really, as they embark on their future. Hey, Ryan.
COVID-19 has made both short-term and long-term impact to society, nations, from how we study to how we work. As a high school senior, what can I do to prepare or take advantage of the future opportunities from these shifts?
Okay, so preparing for the future, especially as a high school senior. And let me guess, I'm thinking here Elton might be the best person to kick this one off. Hi, Elton. Oh, Elton, it looks like we might have you on mute there.
All right, how about now?
There we go.
All right, thank you so much, Jobina, for having me on. And yeah, I think with the changing landscape, maybe break up my response into two parts. Maybe one, first, I definitely think going to college is still very worthwhile, and especially with the job market being down and just a changing economic landscape, I think going to school and taking classes and trying to finish a degree is still very worthwhile, whether it's a community college or a four-year college, or even on some level online Coursera classes. Building your education over the next few years will still be beneficial. And I just want to remind students that if you're a college grad, you will make over $1 million more over the course of your lifetime than without a college degree. And so this is where I still believe very wholeheartedly that getting a college education is still very valuable. And maybe on top of that, with regards to a changing landscape, I definitely think that studying a broad range of areas is also beneficial, whether it's computer science or psychology or history of political science. Studying a combination of all, both non-technical and technical, will help position you best for years to come.
Awesome. Thank you, Elton. We're going to keep jumping around to our panelists throughout the conversation, and we have so many great questions to get to. So I want to move over now to Jeremy. He is in 6th grade and has some thoughts about consumers. Hi, Jeremy.
If the government gives you another stimulus check, what would you do with the money at this time?
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. I love the question, and he looks so nice. Rebecca, what do you think?
Jeremy, that is such a great question. If we are to receive another round of stimulus checks, the first thing I tell people is pay essential needs first. Look at things like rent, putting food on the table, utilities, basically your living expenses, things that are going to keep you alive. If you have additional, money after that, it's okay to treat yourself, but also consider possibly paying down some debt. Debt is credit cards or loans or anything that you owe money on, basically, that is either earning interest or, costing you each month. So pay those down if possible. But another thing that I really like to stress is if you do not already have one, start an emergency savings fund. It is so vital to have a backup plan, and that includes an emergency fund. And the stimulus check can help either start building that or just add to it. The pandemic hit a lot of people unexpectedly. A lot of people didn't have their finances ready to go, and we're being challenged right now. So if we get this extra money, look at building that savings account. You never know when a rainy day is going to hit, and you want to at least try to have at least 6 months of expenses saved, or at least some put away to have some peace of mind.
Now, Rebecca, I have a little follow-up to that because we have a lot of younger students here, and the concept of starting a bank account may seem a little scary, a bit confusing. I understand that it is easy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it is really easy to start a bank account. If you are under 18, I would advise you to work with your parents or your guardian and talk to them about some options that you have. I always say look at banks and credit unions. Go in with a wealth of knowledge so you're making the best decision on a bank account for yourself. I am a firm believer in starting a savings account and learning a checking account after you've learned how to save and manage your money. But yes, it's pretty easy to start an account. So talk with, like I said, your parents or guardian, and do your research on banks or credit unions and look at what options are available to you. But most institutions do have student accounts, minor accounts. But once again, look at your options, and the sooner you start, the better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Okay, so we have Sam up next here. He is a senior, and I mean, the seniors are really just under the most pressure here. Sam, you're with us live. How are you? And I'd love to hear your question.
Hi, Ms. Fortson. I'd just like to first off thank JA for having me on their town hall. To give some context, I'm a senior this year. That means I am in that stressful period of applying to college. I'm currently debating whether I go to community college, public university, or private university. So what advice do you have for me as I start applying to colleges?
Thank you, Sam. First off, I know that at least 3 out of the 4 of you all have been working with students very closely, some in the family. But Elton, since this is specifically your profession, we'll start with you first and then go to our other members here.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Yeah, I do think regardless of whether in a COVID year or not a COVID year, I think the key question for students is what really is the best plan for me. And so definitely some students really would benefit from going to a community college and giving themselves maybe 1 or 2 years to really figure out what it is that they might want to do before committing more financial commitment to finishing their 4-year degree. Or there's going to be other students who are going to a 4-year university really is the best place. And either way, there definitely are some shifts that are happening in the college admissions landscape with regards to out-of-state, the UC system, not counting tests, SATs or ACTs. But the first question I think students need to ask themselves first, regardless of whether it's 2020 or not, is what really is the best college plan for myself? And if you can answer that and begin to guide your pursuit in that direction first, that's really where you need to go.
Oh, yeah. And I know we'll get into some more conversations a little later on in our program about online learning as well, because that's a big portion now of the college experience. So, Warren, if I remember correctly from our previous conversation, you have a daughter in high school, yes?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I currently have a daughter. She's a junior in high school who has quite a few friends that have already graduated, that are freshmen and sophomores in Ivy League schools and other universities throughout the state of California. And quite a few of her friends have decided to take a gap year. They decided to take this year off, especially the sophomores, because the freshman year was so, uncontrolled by what they could do with the COVID and the pandemic. They just felt that, it's best to try and take a year off rather than go through, a whole another year of trying to go through the whole process of trying to go back to school, going online, going in, half hybrid, half online, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of them decided that they were going to just take a gap year and donate their time. They were going to join nonprofits. They were going to help their communities. And basically stay here for the whole year. Some of them also have decided that they would take maybe 1 or 2 courses at a community college, just to kind of get their brain going, so they weren't totally sleeping in every morning, because this COVID, let's face it, we've all been stuck at home trying to wake up at a normal time now. It seems very, very difficult, but taking 1 or 2 classes has helped them as well too. In addition to that, I've got also another son that is at the University of Oregon, who is also earning his doctorate, but he's teaching. And he basically has indicated that there are a lot of students that have decided to do what's best and what fits their needs. Some students have decided to stay. Some students have decided to take a gap year off. So again, I think the question that the gentleman asked, it depends on everyone's situation. It depends on what they want to get done. We're true big believers of education. Education is the key to going, as Elton said, for your financial stability and commitment throughout the future. It's paramount that you have that education. So I would strongly encourage education, whether it's going to be virtual, whether it's going to be in person, whether you're going to wait a year, but it just has to fit your needs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that is really where I think your story comes in here, because you were working with your nephew and it came down to his needs. I'd love for you, if you're willing to share this, because a large part of the college experience for many people is balancing the finances. And does it make sense? Because as you stated in your keynote, debt is something that can be very challenging for people.
Yep. Yes, that is correct. My nephew is going to college this year, and he had an option of going to either community college and also a 4-year university. So what really came down to is the cost of college, right? So how much is it costing me to go to the 4-year college where I'm doing it virtually versus if I go to college here, doing it virtually, and it's not going to cost me a lot of money. So at the end of the day, what made his decision to stay at home and attend college was actually the cost. So that way, by the time, he's graduated college, he's not accumulating a lot of debt. He's just going to do the 2 years college and then transfer to a 4-year university at that point. So cost was the major, I think, one of the factors that he used to decide to stay home.
Yeah, so lots of options, everyone. And it is, again, what works best for you. So we are going to move here to a question from Miles. He is a freshman from the Bay Area.
With all the money that the government is giving to the companies, how is that affecting the economy in the long term?
Okay. Warren, want to take a stab at that one?
Well, that's a dandy of a question, boy. Let me just tell you that. With the CARES Act and the PPP loan, basically, we have lent out $660 billion over the course of 2 months, back in April-ish, May, and in June. And we really kind of don't know what the overall effects are going to be because of the CARES Act and the extension that they put on basically for businesses. For instance, instead of having a schedule of spending that money within an 8-week time frame, they modified it to over a 24-week time frame. So that's from 2 to 6 months. So it's still too early for us to decide and to look at the numbers to see how that's really affected our overall economy. It's true, back in May and June, our unemployment rate went down. However, now that the July numbers and the August numbers are in and unemployment is down, we're really having no net benefit on the overall unemployment figure that we have. So therefore, you see a lot of volatility that's going on right now in the stock market, the bank rates, and everything else that's going along. So your question is very good, but it's still too new to review with the data that we have right now.
Yes, those numbers actually just came out. The latest jobless report this morning, I believe 875 million claims. So the good news is that it is under 1 million, which was something we saw consistently throughout the summer, but still 875 million people. So that's a number to keep in mind. And you can research and learn a little bit more about how that works week to week. And then, as Warren said, month to month. Now, I love this next question coming from Scarlett, because money management can start at any age, everyone. She is in 3rd grade.
What should I do with birthday and tooth fairy money I get? I really want to buy a bike.
Okay, Rebecca, what should Scarlett do with her money?
Oh my gosh, Scarlett, you are so cute. And I really, really appreciate that question because you're already in the mindset of saving almost, you're there. So I'm excited to see that. So first of all, determine, as we've mentioned a couple times, is the bike a need or a want? And approach it from setting goals, long-term or short-term. I like to refer to SMART goals, so specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and timing. So think about that when you get that money from the tooth fairy. If you go buy a bike today, is that all your money and then it's gone? Do you need the bike to get to school? Do you need it to get to a job? How do you determine what that is for you? So basically, if it's a want, you don't really need it today. If you need it, that means you have to get somewhere and you have to or not get somewhere, I'm sorry, but you need it to basically provide for yourself, go to a job, produce something for the family, something like that. But then start saving. Put a little bit away each time you get the money from the tooth fairy. And give yourself a timeline. Sometimes it could be 3 months, 6 months. But as you save over time, you're creating a habit. And that is so important to do at your age, because then savings isn't a problem in the future, because you've already created these lifelong habits. And savings then becomes just a routine for you. And it's so much more rewarding when, and believe me, I tell my kids this all the time, when you put a little bit away and you see it build up every single month, it is so exciting to see that dollar amount as 6 months goes on. And we're not even going to talk about compound interest and how you get free money on money that's in a deposit account. So you actually get more money on more money. So it's a lot to think to like absorb right now, but put some away, save for the long term for the bike, and then also shop around for the bike. A lot of the times we look at the bike and we want that one that we see, but sometimes you can find a better deal. You might also be able to look online through Facebook has Marketplace now. There's also Craigslist to look for want ads, or people are selling their bikes privately, and sometimes you're able to save a little bit more money. So therefore, you leave even more in your savings account. So that's kind of my suggestion for it. And just think long term. Build your savings account, and then reward yourself with the bike once you've reached your savings goal.
Absolutely. And if you're a little older than Scarlett, this same advice works for a car, everybody. So think about the wheels. Next up here, we have Simone, who is live for us with a question. Hi, Simone.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My question is, why did the Federal Reserve lower the interest rate? And what effect does this have on our economy in both the short term and the long term?
Thank you, Simone, who is also a senior in high school, by the way. Aday, do you want to take a stab at this one?
I think I'm going to say it in a very simple way, right? The interest rate is beneficial for the consumers like you. And it's really hurtful for the banks like us because what it does is it cuts our profit level, right? So it's a very complicated subject, and I'm really happy that you're watching this and really, watching the interest rate and asking these questions. But I think when I was talking to Warren, or we were talking to Warren, he had a very good way of explaining it in depth. And Warren, if I may kind of ask you to explain it in a better way than I can, but like for me, I think for consumers, this is the right time. If you're going to borrow money, this is the right time to borrow money. And then for banks, we're losing money. So it's very advantageous for consumers.
Right. If I could just echo a little bit on what Aday said, basically what's happening is what we call is an inverted yield curve. It might sound a little weird to say something like an inverted yield curve, but what's happening is that the interest rates keep coming down, keep coming down, keep coming down, keep coming down. And as you know, the Federal Reserve just lowered their monies to 0%, or practically 0%. So the way that banks can borrow money now at 0% is cheap. It's very, very, hard to do. But then when we have savings customers that have checking accounts and money market accounts and things like that, that we're paying between 1% to 2% on, it makes it difficult then to pay our 1% to 2% customers when we're borrowing money at zero, because we still have to pay the deposits and the interest on those accounts. And therefore, the spread, the margin that we make on the loans that we make. So when you're buying a house, or when you're buying an apartment building, or if you're trying to construct a new single family home or apartment building, right? You're borrowing that money at whatever the margin is on top of that. And so that margin is shrinking, Simone. So instead of being 3%, that margin's now going to be about 2.25%, maybe 2%. Sometimes it's less than 2%. Sometimes it's 1.75, 1.5, and it shrinks. And so when the feds keep lowering that rate, it sounds great to consumers because they think they're going to get their rates reduced overall. But in effect, really, it's kind of the banks that are having to adjust in the lending and in the deposits that they have to pay. So that's why you see this whole trickle-down effect of how expensive it can be when rates get at these all-time low interest rates.
Absolutely, Warren, thank you. And also, if you were watching earlier in our program, you may have heard Warren mention something called a gap year that several of his daughter's friends were taking. That is essentially the time period, about a year's length time between when you graduate high school and start college, that you take to do whatever. It could be studying abroad, learning a new skill, taking time to get to know yourself better. But it's just that space in between high school and college. And Tanaya has a question about that.
Hi, so I'm a senior in high school. Should I be taking a gap year to wait things out because of COVID? And if I do, what should I do with my time?
Very good question. And I feel like gap years have really grown in popularity. Elton, correct me here if I'm wrong, but what are you seeing on your front?
There's definitely an increase in students requesting a gap year, and it's already increased for almost every university across the board. And that certainly has some impact on next year's admissions class as well, which is, fortunate or unfortunate, but that's the case. But with regards to the question of what to do with a gap year, I would agree with what Warren said earlier with his family and friends doing like a focused volunteering or perhaps pursuing an internship or really trying to make it productive. And I think this is where don't take a gap year just to take the time off, but really find ways to engage your mind intellectually, work on other hobbies that are very focused. Or I always feel like, again, the whole thing of volunteering or perhaps interning for a nonprofit or really putting your time into really helping other people be better in some form or another is a really good way to use that gap year. But with regards to whether or not you should take it, it really is a case-by-case basis, and it just depends on maybe the current state of the students and whether it's better to go to college now, financially or not financially. There's going to be some schools that may give more financial aid this year than they would in another year. So it really just depends on the student's case.
Really good points there. Also, could you explain for some students that may be new to this term, do you need to be accepted to a college or university in your senior year and then request the gap year? Will your admission essentially be held, your spot, and then you can go the following year? Can you break that down for people?
That's a great question. And yes, technically you need to apply to the college, gain admission, and then request the gap year from that school. And the school has, if they grant you that gap year permission, then they will hold your space and you can restart the following fall. And so this is where I would say prior to this year, the request for a gap year, schools were not automatically granting permission on that gap year. But for this coming year, most schools are very flexible and most schools are indeed granting that gap year permission.
Very good to know. Thank you so much, Alton. All right. So I believe here we have Sam with another question for students and money. Hi, Sam.
Hi. I had another question about just how the money will work with college, like regarding financial aid, taking out student loans, and just that whole process.
Very good question. Warren, what do you think?
You're a senior, Sam. My heart aches for you. I know it's a very frustrating experience, whether to apply for student loans or apply for scholarships, apply for grants and all kinds of things. I would say, first of all, you need to go meet with your guidance counselor at your high school. Your guidance counselor is going to help you instrumentally. They're going to also have basically a plethora of information of what you're going to be able to do to help you, to succeed, whether it's applying for a scholarship or a grant or something like that. There are hundreds of different types of scholarships for the cities that you live in, through counties that you live in, through states that you live in, through hobbies and everything else. So I really, really would implore you to, go through your high school guidance counselor, the career advice also with what they have to find out about financial aid and what you can apply for. But be careful about student loans, because student loans, basically, they're guaranteed. The U.S. government will automatically guarantee you a certain amount of money that will go directly to you. And it's up to you to go ahead and take that money and then pay your tuition from it, in addition to paying for the books that you need or the supplies that you need. It can also pay you kind of the stipends of maybe a little bit of your rent or things like in that nature. So you have to be careful that when you're applying for a student loan, that the funds that you do receive will automatically go to that cost of your education. You don't want to make sure that you're not going to spend it, mindlessly or needlessly on something else. So you want to make sure that you do that. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you're on top of all these student loans, because if you go through the course of borrowing over the course of 4 years to a 4-year university, those expenses can be quite something because they will add up. They're deferred at zero interest until you graduate. But you might think that you're borrowing $10,000 for 1 year, and you find out that the $10,000 is broken down into 5 different individual loans for that whole year. That's a lot more paperwork that you're going to have to look at and review to make sure that when the time does come to pay those student loans off or to make payments on them, that you have a good record bookkeeping system in paying those loans off also. So, everyone's situation is different. They have different goals of what they want to do. And I would just say, whatever your goals are going to be, make sure that they're in line with, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, maybe even a 15 or a 20-year plan. But you should have at least a 5-year plan of what you want to do and what you want to accomplish within that 5 years, and also a 10-year plan to repay as much debt of that as you can.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Warren. We have about 2 minutes left on our panel and one final question that I quickly want to get to with Simone. Hi, Simone.
Hi. I had a part-time job, but now because of coronavirus, it has been eliminated. What can I do now to bring in income?
Good question. And I'm not sure, Rebecca, what do you think? Do you want to take a stab at this one?
Well, I'll take a stab at it, and feel free for anyone else to jump in. I think now is, I guess you kind of have to assess. Are you getting unemployment, first of all? Are you able to be okay with unemployment right now while your job search continues? But if you were laid off, sometimes it might be the time to look at different opportunities that present themselves. A lot of industries have changed right now. I know, for example, my nephew, he was laid off during the pandemic, and he was a property manager for an apartment complex. And now he's working in a contact center, but remotely from home, he's a supervisor for the Gap. So, I think it's also being able to diversify kind of your expectation of what a job is for you right now. And maybe it's not in food services or retail, but maybe it's something just more remote. And always think about enhancing your skills. If you are unemployed right now and, like I said, receiving unemployment, use this time to look at other opportunities and avenues out there right now. A lot of industries have gone digital. They have expanded workforces remotely, and something that you may not think of, like I said, contact center, answering phones for offices, that is now remote. So look at your local job boards. Look at industries that are open currently right now, like the Targets and Walmart's, grocery stores. Amazon is huge, but credit unions are hiring, banks are still hiring. There are opportunities out there, but sometimes we have to think bigger than what we were doing previously. So those are some of my tips that I have for you.
That was really great advice, Rebecca. Thank you. And I want to thank all of our panelists today. What great advice. I know that I learned a little something new, so I hope everyone else did as well. And now this is probably a great time to remind everyone that we have a JA Town Hall coming up on workforce readiness. That is going to be on February 25th, 2021. So Rebecca just segued us right into there talking about work. And again, thank you so much to our panelists. So now our baseball fans out there, everybody listen up. And even if you're not, we really have something great in store for you all, because Jeremy Affeldt is here. Yes, the 3-time World Series champion, humanitarian, philanthropist, outdoorsman, and author. His baseball career spanned 14 years with the Kansas City Royals, Colorado Rockies, Cincinnati Reds, and the last 7 years, and the most important team on the list, everybody, of course, the San Francisco Giants, okay? So he pitched 22 straight scoreless postseason appearances, allowing just 1 run in Game 1 of the 2010 World Series, and 1 shy of Mariano Rivera's record. Very nice. He retired from baseball in 2015. Jeremy is an active leader to end human trafficking and modern-day slavery, and is an advocate to support and feed hungry, and this includes hungry people here at home and around the world. So he is the co-founder of Generation Alive, a nonprofit organization that works to teach and inspire a generation of young people to act by serving others. Love that. And he is also the author of To Stir a Movement, Life, Justice, and Major League Baseball. He is heard weekly on KNBR Radio and is a special ambassador with the San Francisco Giants. He was recently featured on Guy's Grocery Games on the Food Network and starred here. Oh, all right. We got to start here, everybody, for a national commercial for General Motors Corporation, Precision Matters Fastball, and a national digital commercial for CarMax and Major League Baseball, Drive What Matters. Jeremy is also a father of 3 boys, and I think that might be the highlight for you of the bio. But Jeremy, thanks so much for being here.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I don't even think I knew I did all that stuff. So that's pretty impressive.
Well, the floor is yours. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm very excited, actually. I thank Bank of America for having me be a part of this. I mean, I know with their purpose and their focus on financial futures and education and all that good stuff, it's a pretty important deal. I just been listening to the entire panel there, and I honestly don't have the same education. I got a high school education, so I took a huge gap year, like 20 years before I started getting my education. But one of the things that I realized as a professional athlete, not everybody's going to make it to the major leagues. Not everybody's going to be in the NFL or be a NBA player or anything like that. But I do know one of the things that we learned coming into being a professional athlete is we had to learn how to handle our finances. We had to understand what it meant to be a part of a financial structure that could be very, very big. Obviously, I don't think it's any secret how the athletes and what we're getting paid. We get paid very, very well. And one of the things that I had learned early on when I got to the major leagues, I got to major leagues when I was 22 years of age. So I started incurring some of those finances pretty early. And the first thing I did was find a veteran on the team who had been in the big leagues for a long time and ask him who his financial advisor was. Because for me, I knew at an early age, I wanted to start putting away. I wanted to start putting away money. Just listening to some of the advice that I had just listened to on this last panel of putting a bit away for a rainy day, make sure you pay for your essentials. All those things, they seem obvious, but they're not always obvious. And in this day and age, and in this world we live in, the financial future, it can be kind of a little bit scary. You see a lot of stuff in the stock market up and down, the job rates in and out, what kind of people are getting jobs, what kind of people aren't getting jobs. And so for me, it was a big deal when you play on a baseball team where your future isn't guaranteed. You could get hurt, you could lose, you could have a bad year, those kind of things. I always thought about putting money away. And so I wanted a financial guy that had a ton of integrity, that understood baseball, how it worked, that understood my lifestyle, that understood my needs and what I wanted to have in life. And so I knew even in high school at an early age, I always kind of saved money. It was kind of my thing. But once I got to the big leagues and the big league level and money started coming in, what you see a lot of times happens in sports is guys don't know how to put away. They don't know how to save. They don't know. They think that money, is always going to keep coming, and it's not. And so for me, putting away and saving and understanding a little bit about what's going on in the world in regards to finances is important. And like I said, I only had a high school education. I signed at a high school. I signed to have a full ride at Gonzaga University, but I never went because I signed to play baseball at a high school. And what I did know and what I'm very thankful for was education was super huge for me. And I wasn't going to go to college because I had started playing pro ball. So I just started educating myself. I started reading a lot more. I believe that, like wisdom is power, in my opinion. So I tried to gain wisdom anywhere I could. And I knew once the finances started increasing at the major league level, I started studying up on different ways to diversify money, what it looks like to save, what it looks like to spend, how to spend correctly, how to save appropriately, what to kind of invest in. And that way when I hired a financial advisor, and today he's been with me for 20 years and I trust him. And he's done an amazing job, but I stay educated what's going on. I ask a lot of questions. I read. I find other people that, not just my financial advisor, but I've surrounded myself with people that have done pretty well in the financial world, and I've surrounded myself with them, and I've talked with them about things as well, and how to invest appropriately, and what to spend on, what is the frivolous spending, and how much should you do of that, and then what is the big savings, and then what is the a budget, and how to do a budget when you make a lot of money, because some people, they just don't budget, right? So it was big for me, and integrity was big for me, and how I handle finances, and how I view finances, and money is not my life, and supporting other people that don't have the finances was big for me too, and but all around, how I represent, how I handle money and how I represent finances was a big deal. Like I said, I had hired a financial guy that had integrity in the sport of baseball, had a lot of baseball players, and I knew he would take care of me, and I could trust him with it. And you've heard all these things with these baseball players, these super sad stories of these ball players that got taken in these fraudulent, ventures, or these financial guys that had just run with their money and stole all their money. The Madoffs and stuff like that. You hear about all that, and you don't want to be a part of it. So I really did my research on who my financial guy would be, and who I could entrust my finances with, and then also who I could gain wisdom in how to use my finances. And it paid off. In 2010, I didn't announce it right away. I kept it quiet until I wrote it in my book, and I did it for a reason. But the Giants and I negotiated a contract, and we had an extension done. And when the contract was signed, we sent it. Major League Baseball approved it, and I got a call from my agent that said the Giants had actually overpaid me by half a million dollars in the contract, and they said that the contract was set and done, and you can keep that money, but we really didn't agree to that. So that's kind of our fault. And I asked my agent, he said, so you've made extra money. What do you want to do? And I said, what do you want me to do? And my agent was super important man to me. He's another man that I surrounded myself that knew my finances. He was every part of my life. He was integral. So again, I surrounded myself with someone else who had wisdom, who had integrity. And he said, well, as your agent legally, I can tell you can keep the money. He said, but talking as your friend, you need to give the money back, because it's not what you signed for. And so I remember I wrote that check back to the Giants, a lot of zeros, and I didn't have that much room on the check line. But I wrote that money back, and I gave it back to him. And when we negotiated further in life, down the road a little bit, it was a couple years later, that was brought up in negotiations by them. And Brian Sabian and Bobby Evans had both said to my agent, well, based on the way he handled the financial situation that we messed up on, and he handled that with integrity, we believe he's the kind of character and the kind of person we want on our team. And so then they now took care of me in the next contract, and financially. And again, it goes back to using wisdom, understanding finances is going to be a big part of your life. And if it's going to be a big part of your life, it's really important on the people that you have helping you with the finances, helping you invest, helping you make wise decisions, because it is always going to, that is a big, for me, how people handle their finances, and what people do with their finances, and what people do with finances when maybe like this situation where too much was given, is a big part of who they are, and it represents them. And you have to remember, how you handle yourself in the financial world is going to be how people sometimes view you. And so that was something I had learned in Major League Baseball. I took classes on it. I read books on it. I studied up on it. And that was a big part, and it still is to this day, a big part of who I am and how I handle things. And so I think that's going to be a big part as you guys, for me, as seeing this youth culture move into this new world of business, and you're going into this lifestyle. It's not always about money. It's not always about making a lot. It's about handling what you have and handling it appropriately, and it'll last you for a lot longer in your life, and it'll set you up for high success later down the road. So that's the kind of stuff I learned as a Major League Baseball player, what to do knowing that my future could be year to year, or it could be like I played for 14 years. So it could be 14 years, it could be 1 year. You never knew in baseball, but I'm so thankful I learned those skills as a baseball player because it's helped me since I've retired when I'm not making that kind of money that I was making when I played.
Great advice, Jeremy. Thank you. I mean, it's what our panelists were saying earlier, rainy day, you never know what the future holds.
Right.
So we appreciate it. Thank you. And everyone, that is going to lead me to our next portion here. I want to thank our panelists, thank Jeremy for lending their valuable time today, and also some really good advice. So I just want to remind everybody that if you missed something or you want to show your friends or family a clip of what you learned today, you can go to the Junior Achievement NorCal website, and that is right there on your screen, janorcal.org. Junior Achievement is about inspiring tomorrow. So while today may feel uncertain, I hope that you are walking away with something that will inspire your day tomorrow and bring you just a little bit more education, maybe a new idea, something that'll take you a little bit further in life. And also, I want to make sure that you know on janorcal.org, you can find financial literacy courses, also things about entrepreneurship, work readiness, free resources available. Okay, and now you see the QR code on the bottom. I'm going to go on this side. On the bottom of the screen, it's on the opposite end there. Want to make sure that you know you can scan that. And when you do, you can answer the questions here that will be available, and also a survey, and win a chance at getting some AirPods. Yes, Apple AirPods are on the table, everybody. So I want to let you know that. And then closing here with our wonderful JA NorCal President and CEO, Christine Burr, to finish out our program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us today to discuss what's on the minds of our youth as it relates to their finances now and in the future. Panelists, you did a great job. Loved your insight, and the advice that you gave was so incredibly relevant. At Junior Achievement, we're in the business of inspiring tomorrows, and by empowering our students to succeed in a global economy, we're able to direct our youth down a productive path for an excellent future. Students, the decisions you make to own your future economic success will serve you well. Teachers, stay close to us. We'll have many more virtual experiences planned for the weeks and months ahead. We'll be providing access to career pathways, opportunities to learn about entrepreneurship, and even money with our upcoming financial literacy series. Don't forget to take a moment before you leave to complete our challenge and fill out our survey using our QR code for a chance to win a pair of Apple AirPods to help with virtual school. So until next time, be well.